Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Waiting Room, the show that challenges you to thrive, not just survive in every area of your life. This is your host, Ruem, and in this podcast, I'll be talking about the lessons we learn from waiting in every season of life. How we wait is more important than the wait itself, so waiting well is what matters. In this episode, I will be talking about building intentional friendships. I have been reading the book Intentional Relationships by Chris Suatocho and Dan Hoke, and it has been such a refreshing and eye-opening approach to friendships and dating as we know it. I mentioned this book in the previous episode, talking about whether men and women can be just friends. So you can listen to that episode to catch up if you'd like to. So in chapter 10 of the book, they introduce a concept of intentional friendships. This is a time between just a general friendship and dating someone. So the question is, how are you supposed to know if you should marry someone if you don't date them first? But you can't just go from friends to dating. There should be a stage in between. That's where the intentional friendship comes in. So the Western or modern approach to dating is all wrong. No thanks to Hollywood, of course. We grew up on a Hollywood diet feeding their romantic comedies to us. So the Western approach of dating goes from strangers to acquaintances to dating to friendship, and then a lot of times to breakup. Okay, or it does result in a marriage, but then sometimes there's a breakdown in that marriage down the road, and which leads to divorce. So we are taught to become emotionally and psychologically involved with pretty much a stranger before getting to know them, and then we wonder why things don't work out once we see their true colors. The reason the cycle doesn't work, going from strangers to acquaintances to dating to friends, is because the time and intimacy investment in the relationship is high before true friendship develops. So if the friendship doesn't work, the pain is difficult because the loss of intimacy and the time investment. So we become so psychologically involved with people before we actually get to know them. Another problem with dating someone you've just met simply based on attraction is that you don't know much about their character or their personality or their passions or their life goals. You get too close too soon, especially emotionally, and this leads to making decisions about that person, such as dating them or even marrying them, without information to know if it would work. And then when it doesn't work, you're left with discouragement and disillusionment. Okay, so the proper approach to dating should be strangers to acquaintances to friendship, then intentional friendship, then dating, and then leading to engagement and marriage. Okay, so that's how it should work. In an intentional friendship, you get to know that person as a friend, no romantic pretense, strictly platonic. You get to see them in daily life, how they spend their money, how they treat others, whether it's the waiter or customer service. You get to see how they treat other people at church, their family members, their relationship with those around them, whether they study their Bible, how they handle conflict, etc. So you get to just do life with that person and just see them basically on a neutral platform. And I'm sure you've heard the quote before that it is great to marry your best friend because you have that foundation of relationship. And usually with a good friendship comes good communication and healthy boundaries. So in summary, dating with a purpose, this is where you are deliberate about the time you're spending with somebody or the effort you're putting in getting to know them. dating with a purpose works much better when you have an intentional friendship first. All right, so what is an intentional friendship? This is a place between the basic friendship. So you have a stranger, you get to know them, and now you've built a friendship, right? But then there's a time between a basic friendship to dating, and where you are deciding, okay, could this person be a potential mate? Could we explore dating? Could they be the one? This is also a time where both parties are in agreement to get to know each other better, where you spend consistent time together on a regular basis, and you can ask deeper and detailed questions that go beyond just basic friendship. Then at some point down the road, you can decide to intentionally date or to remain as friends. So notice through this process, you haven't gotten fully emotionally involved, psychologically involved. This is just a friend. This friendship is the same as if it were a same-sex friendship. And the timeline is going to be different for each friend group. So I'm not a big timeline person. I don't think there's a certain number of days or weeks or months you have to date or you have to talk or be engaged. But you do have to use wisdom. So I've known couples that have been married decades, 40-something, 50-something years, and they got married 3 weeks after they met. And then I've also known couples that dated for several years and the marriage didn't last. So it depends on the maturity level and the commitment level, I guess, of that couple, how much each person is willing to commit to that relationship. So here are some benefits of an intentional friendship. So remember, this is a time you're going from just basic friends to dating. You're not dating yet, but you're more than just friends. Okay. So the first benefit is there is a lower risk of a heartbreak. Okay. Remember, you're not fully emotionally invested. So if it doesn't work out, you still have positive feelings towards that person and you wish them well, and you understand that they're not the one for you and you want what's best for them just as they want what's best for you. Another benefit, there's lower risk of rejection and the pain that comes along with it. So remember, you're just friends. So if they don't want to date, that's fine. You hadn't gotten to that level yet. It doesn't work out to date, then you can still remain as friends. The third benefit of an intentional friendship is you grow personally and make adjustments and changes. So this is also time for your personal growth. You're learning a lot about yourself, how you communicate, how you respond in different situations, your emotions, anger and impatience and all of that. So you're growing, and then you're also adapting. You're learning to compromise as a friend, and you're learning it's not all about you, and just adjusting to the changes that are happening in that relationship. Okay. Number 4, you have more time to get to know someone without the pressure of dating. Okay, so you get to build that friendship and you treat them as if they already belong to somebody else. If you kind of have that mindset, like it's not a guarantee that we're going to end up together. They could be potentially somebody else's future spouse. So there's less pressure and you can just get to know them, once again, without getting psychologically and emotionally entangled. Fifth benefit, you are in control of how much time to talk and spend together because the expectations are lower. So with a dating relationship, you spend more time together. You're making more phone calls or spending more time on the phone and doing things together, whereas in a friendship you might get together once or twice a week and call each other once or twice a week. There's no pressure to have to be constantly communicating on a regular basis. So you're still doing life and everything is still going as it should, and you have that freedom to get to know somebody but not feel like you are dating them. Benefit number 6, you learn about their boundaries and their respect of your own. So, people have different ideas when it comes to boundaries, especially in dating, and then especially if it's Christian, like Christ-centered dating. Tends to be different than secular worldly dating, but boundaries are so important. And I mentioned this in a previous episode, but you still want to have healthy boundaries, and the same boundaries you would have for any male-female relationship. Physical boundaries, you don't want to do anything you wouldn't do with your best friend, so you don't hug, kiss, or snuggle, cuddle with your best friend. So that's not something you would do in an intentional friendship. So respecting those boundaries, and then when they respect yours as well, that's important because that shows that they care for you. And then the last benefit is that you can really be yourself. Most of the time when people are dating, they put a good front, they put their best face forward, and they're trying to impress the other person. But then over time, that gets old and their true self comes out. But in an intentional friendship, you can just be real. You can show your flaws, your weaknesses, and that person is going to accept you as you are, or they should accept you as you are. If they can't handle it, then that's a telltale sign that they might not be a good dating partner. All right. So I think the most important thing with an intentional relationship is, as the word says, is intention, having purpose, having a plan, and not just leaving it to chance or hope and just thinking, oh, well, I hope this will work out, or I hope they're the one. You can actually know and prepare. And the Bible says that the wise are cautious and avoid danger. So you can avoid heartache. You can, for the most part. Now, some things do happen that are out of your control and hearts do get broken, but you can avoid heartache. And it says, the wise are cautious and avoid danger. Fools plunge ahead with reckless confidence. And that's from Proverbs. And I'm sure you might even have examples of this in your own life, or you've seen others who are careless with their relationships, and they just wear their heart on their sleeves, and they get emotionally involved too soon, and then it doesn't work out when they see the relationship for what it really is, which if they had just waited, they would have seen it in time, and they wouldn't have gone through all the pain and the rejection that they're going through. So just guard your heart and protect the other person as well. So also guard their heart, because like I said, it's not a guarantee that it's going to work out and that you're going to end up dating or marrying this person. So you have to treat them as if they are somebody else's, which ultimately they belong to God. They're God's child, so they're not even yours to begin with. So you have to, if you kind of bring that approach and just respect those boundaries and respect them like that, that would help with your relationship. So over the next few episodes, I'm going to talk about the red, yellow, and green flags to look for in a relationship as you progress in the intentional relationship, if you're in that season of life, because it is important to understand that not everybody in your life or everybody you're friends with needs to stay in your life, or needs you're not going to date everybody or just anybody who's in your life. So you just need to use some wisdom there. So I personally haven't had much experience with this whole intentional relationship concept. This is still new to me. Like I said, I've been reading the book Intentional Relationships, and it's kind of been eye-opening. I've yet to meet someone I'd be willing to invest in an intentional relationship with. I haven't met somebody that's like, oh yeah, let's be friends, let's be intentional friends. But I like the idea, and I think it's something that singles should definitely try to implement more, and not so much the Western approach where you just meet somebody and then in your mind you've created this fantasy where you live happily ever after before you even get to know them. Because the problem with that approach is that in your mind you've created this story. Now the reality has to match up what you have created in your mind. So if you're going to disregard some red flags and yellow flags because you want your reality to match the fantasy, whereas in intentional dating, it's more of like you have a blank slate and everything is just fresh and new, and you're kind of starting from friendship and getting to know that person, taking stock of the information that you're gathering and then applying it to your life and deciding from the information you have gathered to make a decision, and not making a decision before you gather any information about that person. Okay. So I definitely recommend you pick up that book, Intentional Relationships. The link is in the description, and read it. It's great for singles, and I'll also recommend marrieds as well to read it, so you can kind of get an idea of the foundation of healthy relationships. All right, so my question for you this week is, are you ready for an intentional friendship? Are you in a place in your life where you know somebody, or you have somebody who you're friends with, but now you want to, before you start dating them, you want to get to know them a little bit more? Do you have time to commit to this intentional friendship? Are you willing to be available? Are you willing to be open and honest about yourself? Are you willing to be patient? Are you willing to take time to really get to know someone before dating them and not get ahead of God? So if you answered yes to any of those, then I think you're ready for an intentional relationship. Go for it. And you know what? I would love to hear your experience. Tell me if you have been in an intentional relationship, or if you're in an intentional relationship, or if you're interested in the idea of one, and then just what stories you have to share from that. I look forward to hearing from you. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me here in the waiting room. Look out for my next episode. In the meantime, please share this podcast with a friend. If you know any singles that are in this season of life, please share this episode with them. And I encourage you to leave a comment or question either via email or Instagram or on my website. Until then, take care.